This is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield from the Lynn Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Michael provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Mike Mansfield, a solo flight today here. Thanks for watching The Wealth Puzzle and listening to what we got to say. I know it's been a few weeks. A lot's been happening in the world in the last few weeks. We've got the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates, which is pretty interesting. If anybody goes back a month or so ago, Tana and I did a show where we went through the history of federal rate cuts, the statistics of how markets perform. We still view that as a big mathematical positive, right? The point we were making was there's a lot of anxiety right now. There's a lot of stress for all of you. You're worried about the election. You're worried about the geopolitical risks and world wars, national debts. You're worried about what the next president's going to do and tax policies. Trust me, I understand we're fielding a lot of questions. We're fielding a lot of emails and phone calls right now and discussing these things with you. Obviously, at the end of the day, nobody knows what's going to happen, but at least we can have some context to, at least what history tells us. And so if we can clear away a lot of that noise and a lot of that pressure of what's giving us angst right now, I think it is very critical to focus on the idea that the Federal Reserve is cutting. Historically, as we said in our show a few weeks ago, typically the stock market, if we're being shallow, right, the stock market is not a very perfect measure of the health of a nation, the health of an economy, health of politics, anything else. But the stock market is certainly something we're all curious about. 12 months out from rate cuts, statistically, the market's up somewhere between 12 and 15%, about 65% of the time. 3 years out, statistically, the market's up 85% of the time, somewhere between 40 and 50%. 5 years out, there has never been a cycle 5 years out from rate cuts where the stock market wasn't higher. And on average, somewhere between possibly 90 and 100%. So the statistics are on our side. The reason being is simple. If you boil down all the fancy words and monetary easing and blah, 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 and all this stuff, it's all about inflation. And when the Federal Reserve cuts rates and prints money, they create inflation. Inflation makes dollars bigger. When dollars get bigger, everything gets bigger. The stock market obviously is up a lot in the last few years, very significantly in part simply because we've had a huge amount of inflation. So if the Federal Reserve maintains that inflationary pressure, then obviously markets will go up over time. It's kind of like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. So we're advocates right now that based on the Federal Reserve's current attitude, let me plop it up on here real quick. Based on their current attitude, here we are looking at the Fed Rate Watch tool, which we've used very actively on the show over the years. I got the red, white, and blue election guide logo behind me here. This is very exciting. But there's a 90% probability at the moment that on November 7th, 2 days after an election, that there's going to be a quarter-point rate cut. You go to December, there's about a 70% chance that a further quarter-point rate cut. So the statistics are on the side that the Fed is going to do another 0.5% in rate cuts this calendar year and leading into next year. It's further remember, this is the betting market of sorts. This is the bond traders and interest rate traders, the people that watch this stuff and are experts at it that make these projections. But if we go to the Federal Reserve themselves, here on the screen, I have the summary of economic projections. This gets updated quarterly from the Federal Reserve. When you go and you're bored enough to go read this report, what you're looking for is the Fed funds rate. I know it's small. Let me make it a little bigger. The Fed funds rate. And you see they've got it by years at the top here. And in simplicity, we could look at the longer run rate, but really over the next couple of years. But that longer term run rate is basically saying the Feds really want to get the Fed funds rate down below 3%. Now, it's interesting because, go read the Federal Reserve mandate. Control prices, so inflation, and control the labor market. That's like their dual mandate. Well, one would argue the labor market is tight. It's barely over 4% unemployment. the government is telling us that inflation is under control. I know that that's debatable amongst all of you because we sit here and debate it with you constantly. But per the government's measure, if the GDP is strong, inflation's under control, companies are still growing, the stock market is going up, and the labor market is tight, why is the Federal Reserve projecting such aggressive rate cuts? Like, this is a little bit of a conundrum for me. My opinion is the Federal Reserve is quietly trying to create inflation for two reasons. One is reducing interest rates allows them to refinance our national debt at lower rates. I'll go into a more detailed video maybe in a few weeks about that. Separately, by cutting rates and printing money, the inflation will keep the federal tax base up. See, the Federal Reserve has such a big budget, the federal government has such a big budget, and the interest on our debt is now so high that the government cannot really afford deflation, which is certainly what you and I want, and they certainly can't afford a recession right now. So to me, they need to run the economy hot. They need to keep printing money. That inflation will keep the tax base up, help them keep paying the interest on their debts, help them refinance the debt at lower rates. We just keep playing musical chairs with all of that. Oh, I thought I'd touch on the election. Like I said, no, this isn't a political speech today or telling you who to vote for or anything like that. But we are getting a lot of phone calls, and this is from both sides of the aisle. People want to talk about it. People are concerned what the attitude is with the stock market and things of that nature. In general, and that's in general, this is certainly a unique election cycle, which we can all agree on. In general, stock markets do well in presidential election years. In general, they go up because the stock market's looking for certainty and understanding. See, a lot of us are putting a lot of mental energy into the top of the ticket. What if Trump wins? What if Harris wins? What if? What we lose sight of very quickly is it's not about the top of the ticket necessarily. That's certainly a piece of the conversation, but it's the down ticket. What is the congressional control? See, if Trump wins with a split Congress or Harris wins with a split Congress, all of the things that they're talking about are just talking points at the moment. How things actually get passed and what policies and legislations come through is really a manifestation of congressional control. I mean, heck, Biden is a perfect example. Look at all of the promises he made about paying off all the student loans. He's paid off some, and there's been a lot of debates, and it has been a chaotic mess for the last 4 years at best. So the whole Harris is going to tax unrealized gains, the Trump's not going to tax Social Security, all of these things are just buzzwords to get everyone all excited at the moment. But people do ask me what my opinion is. And, I'm a numbers person. That's all I know. That's all I have to rely on. I think if we've learned anything about elections is, wake up the next day and see what it says, because we can all be surprised one way or another. But as a point of context, I actively go to the Real Clear Politics website. The reason I go there is because they aggregate a lot of the major national polls that are going on. And you can kind of navigate to this page, which is Trump versus Harris. And it's interesting. And the reason I like the page is the yellow line across the top. So it shows all the different polls that have recently come in. The yellow line across the top says the average. So this is the national polling. So this isn't state specific. So on a national level, Kamala Harris is beating Donald Trump by 0.8%. So she is statistically winning in the polls nationally. But once again, context matters. And that's why I like this website. So right above all that, you see this thing that says this day in history. And what it shows is Biden was leading by almost 8% at this exact time. And Clinton was leading by over 6 percentage points at this time. Obviously, we know how those elections went. So this is a very tight race. Statistically, it's looking interesting, but national poll doesn't really matter. The national vote is interesting and certainly gives an idea of maybe a broader swath of thought. But what matters is the Electoral College, and this shows it. So in here, it shows the subset of how all of those sub polls are polling at the moment. And it's interesting. You can click on any one of these. For example, here's Pennsylvania. It says Trump is up 0.8%. Well, that's a that's margin of error. That's not exciting. But once again, this day in history, Biden was up 5%, Clinton was up 6%. So I think it just helps you all to get at least some objective information instead of living in perhaps the chaos of gym talk or whatever it is, where you're talking to your buddies about all of this stuff. But that's what I'm looking at. Those are the things that we're watching. Obviously, we'll find out in 2 weeks, hopefully, what it is. Look, no matter who wins, I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to get down on my knees and I'm going to pray and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't understand this outcome, but big man, please, I hope this is for the good of our country, because there are real things that we need to be focused on. We need to be focused on the national debt and how our government spends our money. We need to be focused. Right? I had it up a second ago. I was looking at this, credit card debt is at all-time highs. People are tightening up. Things are becoming problematic. Default rates are starting to creep up with individual consumers. The leading sector of car sales right now is cars between $20,000 and $30,000. Like, all of these things are screaming, people are a little tight, people are a little uncomfortable, things are a little overpriced. So there's a lot that needs to be thought about above and beyond, obviously, this contagion that we're all feeling about this very real election. So in any case, just wanted to kind of hop in here, make a quick video, give you guys a little bit of updates. We'll certainly be circling back right after the election. We'll have some general conversation about the end result of it and perhaps some strategy. Just because the stock market theoretically can go up based on Fed rate cuts and creating inflation, depending on who wins the presidency, are there different sectors and areas of the market that might be, we'll say, unique winners in that sense. So we'll talk about that stuff. But look, I don't care your political beliefs. I like all of you. I'm not offended by you. I've heard it all. I wholeheartedly believe that we all have our own opinions that are shaped off of our own personal experiences, the things we've seen, the things we've read, the things we understand. For example, I was in the military. So that gives me a very unique shaping over firearms, perhaps, or something like that. And so as we've all had our unique experiences on life, obviously we're going to have different opinions about stuff. But I'm more than happy to have these conversations. I'm more than happy to spitball this stuff with you guys. So please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Our office number, 805-500-7035. Visit our main website, thelindgroup.com. And everybody, just relax. One way or another, it's all going to be okay, because it always is. So anyways, I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for taking the time out.